Version 5.1 closed beta has started, and we now have all the information about Xilonen's kit, including her skills, talents, and constellations, so without further ado, let's get started. Xilonen is a 5-star Geo unit who scales on defense stats, and she has a base defense of 930 at level 90. As for her Ascension stat, she can get a total of 36% defense bonus at level 90. These are her Ascension and talent level up materials, so you can pause this video and take a screenshot so that you can farm these materials later. But keep in mind that you can't pre-farm the boss materials yet, because the Overworld boss will be released in version 5.1. Moving on to her skills, Xilonen's normal and plunging attacks are pretty much the same, but her charged attack consumes a fixed amount of stamina and performs a forward kick, which is something new. Similar to other Natlan characters, Xilonen has a thing called Blade Roller, which is really cool, and it's part of her kit as well, as she can kick enemies using that device. Moving on to her elemental skill, Xilonen switches to high-speed combat blading gear and rushes forward a certain distance before dealing Night Soul aligned geo damage based on her defense. It's similar to Yelen's skill where she deals hydro damage. After using this, Xilonen will gain 45 Night Soul points and enter the Night Soul's blessing state. In this state, she will shift to the Blade Roller mode. Now, the most important thing, Xilonen has 3 samplers with her that can generate different soundscapes based on her other party members' elemental types, decreasing nearby opponents' corresponding elemental resistance when activated. The initial recorded source sample within each sampler will be Geo, and for each party member who is Pyro/Hydro/Cryo or Electro, one Geo sampler will change to that corresponding element. When Xilonen is in the Night Soul's blessing state, the Geo source sample she carries will remain active throughout. After unlocking her passive talent Nitotolistli's Echoes, Xilonen can trigger her passive talent's effects to regenerate Night Soul points for herself. When her Night Soul points hit maximum, she will consume all her Night Soul points and activate the 3 source samples she has on hand for 15 seconds. When the source samples are active, nearby opponents' corresponding elemental resistance will decrease. The source sample effects of the same elemental type cannot stack, and Xilonen can trigger these effects even when she's off-field. Moving on to her elemental burst. After casting her burst, she activates the Phlogiston Stereo Mixer at full power, dealing Night Soul-aligned AoE Geo damage based on her defense. Additionally, she will trigger the sum effects based on her different source samples. First, if she has at least 2 source samples that have undergone elemental conversion, Xilonen will play an ebullient rhythm, healing nearby active characters at intervals based on her defense. Second, if she has less than 2 source samples that have undergone elemental conversion, Xilonen will start up an ardent rhythm, which will play 2 additional beats that deal Night Soul-aligned AoE Geo damage based on her defense. Moving on to her passive talents. Her first talent. While in the Night Soul's blessing state, Xilonen's normal and plunging attacks gain some buffs based on her current source sample types. Should she have at least 2 source samples that have undergone elemental conversion, she gains 35 Night Soul points upon hitting an opponent, and it can be triggered once every 0.1 seconds. Should she have less than 2 source samples that have undergone elemental conversion, damage dealt is increased by 30%. Her second talent. While in the Night Soul's blessing state, when Xilonen's Night Soul points reach maximum, she will trigger an effect equal to that of her Night Soul burst. This effect can be triggered once every 14 seconds, and when nearby party members trigger a Night Soul burst, Xilonen's defense is increased by 20% for 15 seconds. Her third talent. After her Night Soul points are depleted, Xilonen will switch to consuming Phlogiston to maintain her Night Soul's blessing. While in an area with Phlogiston mechanics within Natlan, she can use Night Soul Transmission. When the active character is sprinting, climbing, or in a movement mode caused by certain talents, or at a certain height in the air, some effects will trigger when switching to Xilonen. First, she will enter the Night Soul's blessing state and gain 20 Night Soul points. In this situation, Xilonen's Night Soul points have a 4 seconds time limit, after which her Night Soul points will be immediately depleted. After she uses her skill within this time limit, her Night Soul point time limit will be extended by 9 seconds, and the Night Soul transmission can be triggered once every 10 seconds by your own team. Additionally, while in Natlan, Xilonen will not consume stamina when climbing while in the Night Soul's blessing state. Moving on to her constellations, I'm only going to mention 2 of her cons, since they're really important and you might want to go for them. Her first constellation, Xilonen's Night Soul point and phlogiston consumption in her Night Soul's blessing state is decreased by 30%, and her Night Soul point time limit is extended by 45%. Additionally, when Xilonen's source samples are active, she can also increase nearby active characters' interruption resistance. As for her second constellation, when Xilonen's source samples are active, all nearby party members will gain effects corresponding to the active source sample that matches their elemental type. Like Geo characters will have their crit rate increased by 30%, Pyro characters will get a 40% attack bonus, Hydro characters will gain an additional 40% HP, Cryo characters will have their crit damage increased by plus 50%. And at last, Electro characters will restore 20 energy, and their elemental burst cooldown will be decreased by 5 seconds. As you can see, she is the best support unit we will get after Kazuha, and her first 2 constellations are really good, so you might want to save some Primogems for her. That's everything I have on Xilonen's kit, so that's it in this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.